Good morning, everyone. This is your Wheel and Anchor webinar on our LiveAway program to Cyprus, where we'll be going in March of 2022. So in just a little over half a year's time, we'll be visiting this beautiful island. For those of you who are new, I just want to tell you a little bit about Wheel and Anchor. And if you have been with us before, please bear with us for a couple of minutes while I explain what Wheel and Anchor is all about. Our mission here, we're a little bit different than your average travel company because our goal, our mission is to bring travelers together, not just any travelers, but particularly like-minded travelers, people who appreciate that we visit countries to learn about local traditions and local culture and current affairs. And we like to take our time to really experience and understand what's going on. It's not just about seeing all of the sites all the time, all the tourist attractions. It's about much more than that. And everybody in our group has that sort of same philosophy with our Traveler's Creed that you will have read when you joined us. So that's what we're about. And in particular, the special goal that I have for each and every one of us is to be well-traveled and well-connected. And I was musing about what it means to be well-traveled. And I was thinking back to the time when I was a little kid and my parents traveled quite a bit. And that's going back a long time ago. And they had a number of people, circle of friends that they always traveled with. And, whenever they would come back, they would talk about their experiences and the people that they met along the way and this food that they ate. And it just occurred to me that the type of people that are travelers are just so much more educated and worldly and so on. And I think it's a wonderful trait to have. And similarly, being well connected, meaning that you have the benefit of traveling with people, as I said before, like-minded people, and you share those experiences, which invariably, tightens the connection that you have with people that you travel with and people as well that you meet at destination. And it's a wonderful feeling. And we are, those of us that are able to travel are I think so much better off for it. And that's what we really want to foster here at Wheel and Anchor. So moving along, joining us on our webinar this morning, my name is Gordon. I'm the founder of Wheel and Anchor, and I've been doing travel for a long, long time. As I think many of you know, it's been over 30 years since I've been bringing Canadians on trips all over the world. In fact, just as an anecdote, I used to actually organize trips for travel agencies in different parts of the country before we started Wheel and Anchor a few years back. So, and I'm joined by Joel Curry. He's in the background, hiding behind the logo there, doing our technical support, making sure everything runs smoothly. And Paula, who is joining me by video again this morning. Many of you will have spoken to Paula. She is our senior trip specialist and is the cheerful voice that always greets you when you call into our office to talk about the trip. So good. Our plan today is all about Cyprus. It's about going on a little mini journey through this fascinating little country in the eastern part of the Mediterranean. I'm going to be taking you on this journey today, as well as on the trip itself when we go in March. And we're going to be diving deep, or at least probably actually more scratching the surface onto some of the great things that we are going to be experiencing while we go. And so first off, what is behind the concept of Wheel and Anchor LiveAways? Well, there's a couple of different things. First of all, it's a long stay type of a trip. So we don't just go for for a week or for 10 days like on many trips, but rather we're going to spend long enough that we can, usually a month. Most of our LiveAways are a month of time, and that enables us to really get a much better understanding of what the destinations are all about. Second of all, we travel with our community, so with our friends and acquaintances from Wheel and Anchor to a new community. And by spending this longer time, we get a chance to really get to know our fellow travelers, but also, as I said before, the people that we meet along the way. Our LiveAways are designed with a little bit less structure and more free time. So we like to create a hybrid of an organized aspect to the trip where we have planned excursions and activities and lectures and things so that you you know what you're going to expect a little bit, but also, let's face it, the joy of travel is about having that free time to go out and explore on your own. And there's ample free time. We'll be there, so a host, myself, as well as one or more of our local guides to help point you in the right direction so that you can use your time wisely and kind of go at your own pace. And of course, at this time of the year, let's face it, it's about taking a break from winter in Canada. So that's why we, like to run our LiveAways in January to March. Although what we found is that the concept is so interesting that we are now starting to develop LiveAways in other times of the year, because our members are saying they just like the idea of spending a month in a place. But this particular time, March, still very much winter at home, unless you're maybe on the south coast of British Columbia. It's spring already there, but for most of the rest of us, we'll be happy to get away and enjoy a little bit more temperate climate in Cyprus. So let's get into the program itself. This is, as I say, a relaunch, so we've modified it slightly, and I'm about to tell you what that's all about. But for those of you who are joining us for the first time on this program, on this webinar, just to give you a sense again, in case you weren't aware already, where Cyprus is located, in the eastern part of the Mediterranean, just to the south of Turkey, and further at the very eastern shore, of course, you have Syria, Lebanon, Israel, and here's Cyprus over here. So as you can well imagine, it has been very much at the crossroads of history as people have settled and moved back and forth across the Mediterranean. We'll see that here in the various historical sites that go back, like so many parts of Europe, particularly here, thousands and thousands of years. The other nice thing about Cyprus being Mediterranean climate means that you have quite mild winters. In fact, even in the middle of January, February, you can often get temperatures into the 20s and so much sunshine. So it makes it a very, very appealing place to travel. Looking at the map of Cyprus itself, we are going to be basing ourselves in 2 spots. So we'll, in all likelihood, fly into Larnaca, which is the major international airport. We'll spend the first 2 weeks in the principal town of Limassol, which you can see there on the map is in the center of the island on the south shore. And the reason that we're going to go to Limassol first is that it's from here that we have very good access to both the northern and eastern parts of the island. And I think that's important because although it's not a huge island, you can probably drive from one side to the other in less than 3 hours. But at the same time, we wanted to make sure that we weren't driving all the way across the island just to visit the fascinating cities and towns in the north part and on the eastern part. So the first 2 weeks will be in Limassol, which is a bit bigger town. The second 2 weeks we're going to spend in the ancient town of Paphos, which you'll see is in the southwestern corner of the island. And this gives us access up to the Akamas Peninsula, as well as into the Troodos Mountains and the beautiful wine country that you find around that part of Cyprus. As you know, you see the dotted line through the middle of the country. Cyprus is a divided island. The Republic of Cyprus was created back in the 1960s when it declared independence from Greece. But of course, at the time, the Turks didn't really go along with that. And so they retained control over the northern part of the island. And of course, the UN peacekeepers there, led by the Canadians for decades and decades, we kept sort of the 2 sides apart. And although there is a little bit of tension still to this day, it's peaceful in Cyprus. And so we will also have the opportunity to visit the northern part of Cyprus, and I'll tell you about that in a second. So let's talk about a few of the things that we're going to experience on this trip. So first of all, why are we going to Cyprus? Well, Cyprus is, I talked already about its location in the Mediterranean and the climate. So it has a very favorable Mediterranean climate. The history hardly needs any introduction. There's a plethora of interesting sites. But one of the things, of course, is this magnificent coastline that they have. The water is like swimming pool blue. It's really quite amazing. And the rocky coastline, both in Limassol and Paphos, you have wonderful boardwalks along the sea. So it's a great thing to do in your leisure time. Just go for a nice walk and take in this incredible coastline. I picked Cyprus for one of our first LiveAways because not a lot of Canadians actually go there. We go to Greece and we go, of course, all parts of Italy, but not a lot of people make it to Cyprus. And I think that you'll find that although obviously in southern Cyprus, people speak Greek, but they have a totally different flair about them. Very friendly, and at the same time, quite, how should we say, reserved people. Really some of the nicest people that you'll meet. And of course, great food, great wine, always a good reason to go and visit a place like that. So talking about the two parts of our trip. So first of all, Limassol, as I mentioned, which is one of the principal cities in the Republic of Cyprus on the south coast. We're going to be staying just a little bit outside of the city center, in sort of a beach district. The nice thing about Limassol is the beaches run all the way along the edge of the city. And although this isn't really a beach holiday, you could go swimming at this time of the year. And the beach is only a 5-minute walk away from our hotel. And we're going to be staying, as in Paphos as well, we're going to be staying in these lovely, charming apartment hotels. And this one, as I say, it's about 5 minutes from the beach, and in about a 10-15-minute bus ride, we can be right in the middle of Cyprus. In the middle of Limassol, and in between there and where our hotel is, there's a whole bunch of restaurants and other amenities and things that we can do to spend both our leisure time and when we're going out looking for a place to eat in the evening. As you saw from the pictures, we have studios, 1-bedrooms and 2-bedroom apartments available in there, and they're really very comfortable and ideally suited for this type of a program. While we're in Limassol, some of the excursions and activities that we're going to be doing are focused on, as I say, the northern part of Cyprus, so the Turkish occupied part of Cyprus, as well as the eastern part of Cyprus. We'll also visit the ancient archaeological site called Kourian, which was a city-state back in the day. And it's one of the most fascinating archaeological sites you'll find on the island. It's technically on UK soil. So the other interesting thing that you'll find is that they still have military bases that were set up a long time ago, particularly by the British. And so they are delineated on the map. If you take a close look at the map of Cyprus, and Kourion is one of those places that's actually inside British territory. So it's kind of neat traveling around this little island and having the different political structures and the different geographies and so on. From here as well, we'll visit the central and eastern parts of the Troodos Mountains. So the Troodos Mountains is a range of mountains that go all the way up, and it's really quite high. In fact, you can go skiing there. So it's not part of our program, but if you really feel like, you didn't quite get enough snow while you were in Canada, we can head up to Mount Olympus, which is the highest mountain in Cyprus, and do some skiing. But more likely, we are going to be traveling around through this mountainous countryside. This is a very stark contrast to the coastline that you'll find, because it's all green and picturesque mountain villages. We'll see this Kikos Monastery, which is one of the most incredibly well decorated monasteries on the island. It's going to be a really lovely, lovely day. And I suspect that people may want to go back up to Troodos during some of their free days, because it's a very different part, very rural part of Cyprus than what we find in these coastal cities. Nicosia, which is the capital of Cyprus, the only divided capital city in the world, in fact. There is a green line that separates the north and south. But more importantly, there's obviously the religious divide. And that's what gave rise to the division of Cyprus way back then, because the Republic of Cyprus in the south is a Greek Orthodox religion. And of course, in the north, being technically part of Turkey, is Islam. And so visiting Nicosia really gives you some insight into the cultural and political differences on this island. You'll also really see the contrast in terms of wealth. So the Republic of Cyprus has really become, quite well off, particularly in recent years. Whereas in the north, it's still a bit of a struggle. So I find it's always interesting as well to see some of those contrasts. We'll also head out to the very eastern shore of Cyprus to a city called Famagusta, which was quite a famous walled city. But during the time of the Turkish invasion in 1974, a whole section of the town was sealed off. So it's like visiting a ghost city or a ghost town, which is part of what makes it interesting to visit. Of course, there's still a part of it that is a bustling seaside town with beaches and Roman and Turkish baths and some incredible sights to see. But what people go for is, this fascinating aspect that it has as a ghost town city. We'll have many other trips on offer, excursions on offer from Limassol, but I just wanted to mention a few of the highlights. The second part of our trip, we will head for the other 2 weeks over to Paphos, which is, as I mentioned before, on the southwestern coast. In Paphos, we will also have a very, very nice apartment style hotel, which we have changed for those of you who participated on our first webinar when we first released the program. We decided we wanted to be a little bit closer to the old town. It's winter, and so it's not as busy in Cyprus as it is in the summertime. And so being close to where the locals are, where the action is, was really important to us. So we have this lovely hotel. You see some of the amenities there. Once again, we'll be having rooms with studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms. So no matter how you're traveling, if you're traveling on your own or with a friend, we have the optimal accommodation for that experience. From Paphos, of course, we'll be visiting the city itself, and Paphos was one of Paphos's claim to fame is the tomb of Nefertiti was there. And so this is one of the things that people come all the way to Paphos for. There's also the tomb of the kings, and there's a whole bunch of different markets. So sorry guys, but I think the ladies will find it particularly interesting because there's a number of different markets that run all year round with all kinds of fascinating artifacts and things that you can pick up. So it's a great place to spend a good couple of weeks. The itinerary while we're in Paphos will be a little bit more relaxed than in Limassol. We'll have a little bit more time, which is perfect because it's a great city for wandering around with a boardwalk and so on. We'll make a trip up to the Akamas Peninsula, which is one of the most sort of sought after destinations in the western part of Cyprus. Here we'll take a cruise because this is where we'll really get a chance to witness some of the incredibly blue waters that you'll find around Cyprus. It's not, because it's March, the sea is swimmable. It's not super warm at this time of the year, probably like 18 degrees Celsius. So a little nippy for some of us, but you might still want to take a quick dip, particularly if the day is really warm. And it could be in March. I have friends in Cyprus that report that temperatures there can even get into the low 20s or low and even mid 20s in March. So we'll cross our fingers that we get some particularly warm weather while we're there. Cyprus, of course, has its own culinary scene. And one of the things that we plan there is to do a foodie tour, at least one. We'll probably do more than one, but the focus here will be on the tradition of meze. So meze, which is similar to tapas in Spain, is where you have multiple small plates, and we'll get to sample and actually make some at one of the cooking courses. Cyprus is also known for this halloumi, and I think, no, it's not pictured here, but halloumi is basically melted cheese, and that is the island's absolute claim to fame on the food scene, and it's truly delicious. And there's a whole bunch of other great things to try, and so we'll experience that on the food tour. We also like to include some activities that are not really as typically touristy, but in this case, pottery is something that has been a very important aspect of craft making on the island for a long time. And so we're going to go visit Agostino and take one of his pottery classes. If you ever thought you wanted to get your hands dirty and try, this is a wonderful experience to do and see how they make this classic pottery over in Cyprus. Now, of course, we can't visit the island without doing a wine tour, because Cyprus has its own varietals of wines. Now, you've probably never tasted a wine from Cyprus before. I only have because I went to the big world travel expedition in London, and the Cypriots brought their wine, so I can say that I've tried Cypriot wine, and it's quite good. But this is always interesting as well for those of you that enjoy your wine, is to have a chance to sample some of these different grapes that they make. And the wine region starts in the foothills of the Troodos Mountains, as I said before, but they make the best ones up at like 600 or 800 meters above sea level because of the cooler temperatures in summertime. Cyprus gets actually really, really hot in summer. So wine tasting, as we like to do on most of our trips. There's also the opportunity to go golfing. In fact, there's a whole bunch of golf courses, or not a whole bunch, but there's at least 3 or 4 that are within about a 30-minute drive of Paphos. I don't know if I would bring my golf clubs all the way unless you're such an avid golfer that you want to go every day. But as you can imagine, the scenery is quite beautiful. And so what a neat experience to try some golf. And as with Limassol, we'll have a number of other activities on offer. And so when we come up to this coming fall, when we're preparing for the final details of the trip, we'll give you the details on all those excursions, because of course you can use your travel credit. So included in the trip price is a travel credit of $1,000, which goes to selecting the itinerary, excursions and the activities that you like to do. And this is, again, one of the benefits of our LiveAway programs, is that you don't have to follow the whole itinerary. You can do as much or as little as you like and use the activity credit for the excursions that best suit you. The other thing that we mentioned in the original program, and we're still going to put on offer here, is because we're there for a month and because we're in pretty close proximity to some very interesting countries, we will have the option to, and we'll see how many want to go along, to visit a couple of nearby cities that are a very short flight from Cyprus. And the first one being Tel Aviv in Israel. So Tel Aviv is about a 45, 50-minute flight away. Obviously, it's the main commercial center of Israel. And it's truly a fascinating city with its own promenade all by itself. And Tel Aviv is interesting because I remember I was there with a Wheel and Anchor group in January of last year, and we visited Tel Aviv, and it's almost like landing back at home. Everything is very modern and efficient, and the highways, and an incredibly well-run city and country. And so in a short flight, we'll be able to hop over to Tel Aviv and have a look for a few days. Depending on how the political situation is, we may also have the chance to visit Beirut. And Joel, if you could just advance the slide there, I think it's still. We'll also have the chance to visit Beirut, and Beirut, of course, is the capital of Lebanon. We will determine much closer to the trip if a side trip to Beirut is possible. It is also only about a 45-minute flight away, but as you can probably know from the media, Lebanon has been having some pretty severe economic challenges, not to mention with the pandemic as well. And so I love Beirut. I've been a number of times. I think it is an amazing city because they call it the Paris of the Middle East. And in fact, it's where a lot of the people from other countries in the Middle East come to go and have a good time. It's a bit of a party town, but it has so much to offer as well. So let's see if we're able to visit Beirut. And then finally, we have the opportunity to go to Cairo, which is about a 2-hour flight away, a little bit further, but still very much accessible. And in a couple of days in Cairo, you'd certainly be able to see the pyramids of Giza on the edge of town, as well as the brand new Grand Egyptian Museum. I've been hyping this one because, of course, this museum has been under construction for the better part of 15 or more years. And it was due to have its grand opening last year, but of course, because of COVID, they pushed the whole thing off. So if you come with us to Cyprus, we may have the opportunity to go to Cairo and be among the first visitors to this incredible new museum that they spent, I think, $2 billion building. It's quite quite a fee. So those are some of the options of things that we can do on the side. Let me give you a little bit more of the logistical information. We do have our brochure on our new LiveAway Cyprus program complete, and that will get sent out to you together with a copy of the replay of this webinar. So you'll find all the details in there, but I just thought I'd touch on them for now. So we have 3 different options at the moment. Although, as I say, we do have quite a good group together. So there's not too many spaces left, but you can choose between 1-bedroom apartments and studios and 2-bedroom apartments. And you can see the pricing there and the details again in the brochure. And we're happy to give you any other information you need to let you know more specifics about those accommodations. In terms of the exclusions, I'm not going to go through the whole list, but just to give you a sense, we try to pack in as much as we can. Obviously, all the accommodation. The most important thing here, of course, is that activity credit. So that is the way for you to be able to select what it is that you'd like to do while you're visiting Cyprus or in advance of the trip. And then you know that you're doing as much, but not more than you want to do. And if you have any credit left of your activity credit at the end, then we will refund the difference to you. So you have complete flexibility over your own itinerary. And there's lunches and dinners and all of the usual things that are included in the program. As far as exclusions are concerned, basically airfare is the main one. And of course, travel insurance, which is really, really important. And the side trips, of course, which we will put out to you around the time that we do the final payment this fall. And that's when we'll see how many members want to join us for one of the side trips. And as far as airfare is concerned, we are still waiting to see how airline schedules come back into play. They're not all there yet, but so far prices seem to be holding pretty steady at their historical levels. So depending on where you are in the country, you're looking for between sort of $1,000 and $1,500, similar to what you would pay for round trip airfare to most places in Europe. But as I say, there's still a few unknowns. Some of the flight connections that we had originally planned for are not back online yet. So we're waiting a little bit longer before we make any flight arrangements. And good, and I'm about to get into the Q&A session. So if you do have any questions pending, please do let me know by typing into that chat box. But of course, you can always just give us a call, drop us an email, and we're happy to answer any of your questions. So on that note, I'm just gonna open my chat box again and see if we have any questions. There we go. Okay, cool. So we had one question here. What is the temperature in March? So the temperatures in March generally range the daytime temperatures sort of from the high teens to the low 20s. At night, it could drop down theoretically as cool as 10 degrees, not generally much colder than that. So kind of like what you'd find at home in like around early May in Eastern Canada, similar temperature to that. Then Tracy asked a question about, do I know about COVID there? Yeah, well, Cyprus has had their share of the pandemic like most other places. I'd say they've probably handled it on average better than some of the other countries in Europe. They've had their lockdowns and so on. They're pretty much past that now. Cyprus is now open for business for Europeans traveling for vaccinated individuals. And on the last report I have from a good friend of mine that lives there, life is actually pretty normal now. They, as I say, they did go through quite a lockdown, but they've got the situation pretty much under control. Let's see, we have another question here from Mike. Can we rent a car to go around on our own? This is a good question, actually. So you do have that option on the free days, and there's enough of them that it may be worthwhile, and we can certainly set that up for you. Keep in mind that in Cyprus they drive on the left, like in the UK, so you have to be comfortable with driving on, as we would say, on the wrong side of the road. But if you can manage that, then you should be pretty good to go. Let's see. Then Troy asked the question if we can go from here to the Tuscany LiveAway, or is there a gap? Well, you theoretically could. In fact, we have a couple of members who are doing both. So there is a couple of days in between, but if you are interested in joining this program and Tuscany, or theoretically Madeira, which is the LiveAway which precedes this, and Cyprus, we can accommodate you and we can assist you with the arrangements for those in between days. Then let's see. Then Bob asked a question about plans to see in Tel Aviv. So in Tel Aviv, we will have a local guide. If we get enough members to go together to Tel Aviv, we'll have a local guide, and we'll certainly take in you know, the old parts of the city with the market there. The name escapes the name for me. It escapes me right at the moment. And we'll likely do a day trip up to Jerusalem as well. They actually have a new train service that links Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. So we could certainly go up there and visit the old city of Jerusalem, and we'll see how the political situation is at the time. And again, it'll be something we decide probably closer to the actual trip. Lori asked the question, what is the single supplement? So the single supplement is shown on that pricing block. We have a double price and a single price. So if you take a look at that, you can see, I'm quite happy that the extra cost to have your own room is relatively modest compared to a lot of tours. And as far as the cost to go to Cairo and Israel, we haven't established that yet. We haven't finalized those trips. I would say that the trip to Cairo for 3 nights, including flights, will probably be around $600 or $700. And for Israel, probably roughly the same. But we will provide those details closer to when we do the final payment date. So good. I think I've managed to answer all the questions. And as I say, if I haven't, please drop us a note, give us a call. We love to hear from you. And I'm looking forward to our upcoming webinars. So a week from now, on the 29th of April, sorry, the 29th of April, the 29th of July, we're going to be talking about our France Kaleidoscope program, part 2, which is the beautiful city of Lyon and the region of Burgundy. So we're going to be spending a week there in October of 2022. And that is part of our 4-part France Kaleidoscope program. We're launching them part by part. We did Canal du Midi last week. Next week, we'll be doing Lyon and Burgundy. And then we'll be touching on the other 2 parts later this in August. So thank you so much for joining me this morning. It was great to see. We've had a great turnout today. I appreciate your interest in this and in all of our programs. I hope you'll come along to Cyprus, and if not, maybe one of our other trips. And I look forward to catching up with you all again very, very soon.